Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. I'm your host, John Ledyard, along with my esteemed boss and colleague, Scott Reynolds. Scott, how are you today?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk some Bucs-Packers, John.
I am too. It feels like, even though we've had the whole thing it's been fun matchups, period, for the Bucs.
Yeah.
I mean, we're figuring out a new Bucs team, and I think that's exciting for everybody. But there's something special about this one, Scott. We have a Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, a rivalry going here, maybe being established in the NFC at least for the next couple seasons, similar to how we talked about Week 1. But I think in Week 1, the Bucs are really still figuring out who they are, and now there's kind of a team that I think has established themselves a little bit more. I know the last time out wasn't a great one, but now they're meeting up with maybe the best team in the NFL right now in Green Bay. And so what a litmus test to be able to for us to be able to figure out how good can this Bucs team really be? Is this a team they can compete against? Are they going to get crushed? Are they going to win? And can you imagine, the energy surrounding a win? And so this is the most fun preview piece I think that we've been able to do to be able to break down this game.
Well, and two, the interesting thing is you'd like to think, well, the Buccaneers are well rested. They had a little bit of a mini bye week because they played Thursday night, but really no advantage because the Packers did have a bye week on last Sunday. So both of these teams will come healed up, refreshed, prepared, ready for battle here, and really for the Buccaneers. I'm not going to jump into my prediction just yet. We'll save that for the end of the show. But the one thing I will say is, if I go back to my original game-by-game predictions, I did have the Buccaneers at 3-2 at this point in time, with every game picked correctly. Now, I will admit, I thought the Bucs were going to win, and I said so in the preview and predictions before that game. But I do believe that the Packers, I think, are going to drop the Bucs to 3-3. But fear not, Buccaneer fans. I still have this team charted for 10-6, and I think they'll right the ship. It's just that, listen, this is a really good Packers team.
That's right.
There's no smoke and mirrors there. They're a good team. They beat the Falcons, and the Falcons are 0-5 and have Raheem Morris at the helm now.
Right.
But I think this is going to be a really good test. And if the Buccaneers can steal a win here, even though it's at home, right? We're using the term steal a win because the Packers are the better team.
Right.
And if you go back and look, I'm just saying, if you go back and look at Aaron Rodgers, his last 4 games with the Buccaneers, the Bucs have actually had some success against Aaron Rodgers here in Tampa. So let's go all the way back to John Gruden's final season, 2008. The John Gruden, Monty Kiffin team beat Aaron Rodgers and the Packers 30-21 at Ray J. Aaron Rodgers had one of his worst days as an NFL quarterback. He completed 14-27 passes, 165 yards. That's it. 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times. Now, believe it or not, the next year, Raheem Morris, Josh Freeman, Tanar Jackson, the old Buccaneers wearing their creamsicles. That was a throwback game. Josh Freeman got his first win as an NFL quarterback that day. That was Freeman's rookie season in 2009. And John, they only won 3 games that year, but one of them was against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. How'd they do it? Well, they held Rodgers to less than 50% completion percentage, 17 of 35. That's a 48.5% completion percentage, 266 yards. And again, here's the magic numbers: 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And that Raheem Morris defense got to Aaron Rodgers 6 times, 6 sacks in that game. Now,
good luck with that this week.
Well, exactly. We're going to preview that in a second. The last 2 games have been all Rodgers. He beat the Buccaneers up in Green Bay by a score of 35-26 in 2011 and completed 67% of his passes, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, only 2 sacks. And then he was triumphant in his last game at Ray J. That was a 20-3 win in 2014 against Lovie Smith's Buccaneers, who surprise,
that was the most dominant one,
surprise, only sacked him 1 time, didn't pick him off, right? That's where you could throw slants all day long against Lovie Smith. Buccaneer fans remember that. And guess what? Shocker, Aaron Rodgers completed 77% of his passes for 318 yards. He was 30 of 41. So what do those statistics tell me, John?
Yeah.
When you play Aaron Rodgers, if you're going to have a chance of beating him in the Packers, you need to pressure him sack him, and you got to pick him off. And John, that has not been easy this year.
Right. Oh, man, it's not been easy at all. Nobody's done it this year, and they've only sacked him 3 times. Nobody's picked them off. Packers don't have a single turnover. They're third best in the league in penalties. I mean, this is the anti-Bucs in a lot of ways. They have not beaten themselves really at any point in any game this season, and because of that, they're undefeated. And it's one of the big reasons why this offense is so hard to stop right now. Packers near top of the league in every category. They run the ball incredibly well. They throw the ball incredibly well. They're efficient. They convert third downs. I mean, there's really not anything that they don't do well offensively right now, and they've done most of it without Davante Adams. So it's a huge task for the Bucs defense, coming off 2 games where I don't think they played to their level for sure, the level that a standard that they've set for themselves. Right. And now have to do it without Vita Vea. So that's all the bad news. The good news is I think that in the question of can Rodgers be stopped, I think the answer is yes. I think that the solution is a lot harder to come by. But I do think that having Carlton Davis healthy, and he didn't practice on Wednesday, and so that's critical. Right? Because they need him to be able to match up with Davante Adams. I think he'll be asked to do it, and I think he'll do a good job of it. And then the rest of the equation is, can they take away the other weapons? Allen Lazard is hurt. That's a big plus for the Bucs because he's been a really established player that makes tough catches down the field that Rodgers loves and has raved about. So now it's guys like Marquez Valdes-Scantling who has struggled and definitely not found consistency, and other guys that have to step up and make plays. Robert Tonyan, the tight end, has done that. The Packers are extremely unique in their passing attack in that they will use their running backs on verticals out of the backfield a lot, and even from the slot. I don't know if that sounds familiar at all to you, Scott, in terms of what we saw last week with David Montgomery catching a little flooper pass over on the outside, and
having Cordell Patterson in the backfield on those wheel routes as well. And, right. The lesson learned, John, is no Shaq Barrett in coverage, right? We established that, did we not?
We've established that. We've established no Jason Pierre-Paul in coverage. That would help a lot against these guys. But even when it's safety matchup, I mean, Whitehead has to be able to match up. Devin White has to be able to match up. Mike Davis beat Devin White out of the backfield on a vertical release in week 2. And that was something that Devin White has got to get better and improve at his game. We're not worried about Levante David in coverage. He's probably the best coverage linebacker in the league, but Devin White's going to be in those situations where he's going to have to make plays vertically in this game. He has the speed to be able to do it. You have the awareness to see it and the technique to get in phase, turn, find the football, do those kinds of things. It's an opportunity for Devin White to have a huge game. He was geeked about it. I mean, he talked to us the other day how excited. I mean, he's more excited for this. He's always excited, but he's excited for this game too. And his energy hopefully rubs off on the rest of the guys. But their defense always comes with that mentality. Right. It's about executing, and that's where sometimes they've struggled to do that against some of these vertical concepts with running backs. And LaFleur is going to test them in all sorts of ways they haven't seen before this season.
Well, and the thing too with Devin White, and we talked to him on the conference call the other day, and for those people out there that are saying, where's Devin White been? Why haven't we seen the splash plays and the plays? He was literally a step away from a couple of sacks in Chicago, especially in the second half when Bulls finally got some blitzes and they were putting a lot more pressure on Nick Foles. Foles wasn't sacked at all in the first half. He was sacked 3 times in the second and hit 7 times. And I think that you're right. It's not really been that Devin White hasn't been a playmaker. It's just that he's been doing his job by covering his assignments. And sometimes when you do that, the quarterback didn't go your way, I think that going back to the old Tampa 2 Monty Kiffin defense, Shelton Quarles, sometimes you didn't hear about him as the strong side linebacker in the old Tampa 2 defense. And part of the reason why was because he was erasing the running back out of the backfield or the tight end, whoever Derek Brooks didn't have, right? So I think sometimes we look at the stat sheet and say, well, where's Devin White? Only had 5 or 6 tackles. But sometimes it's just the quarterbacks are not going his way in the passing game. And if you look at guess what, that 15 tackle performance he had in week 2 against Carolina, Teddy Bridgewater was throwing to the backs a lot and the tight ends and the receivers that he was slotted up with. So that's why Devin White was more active in that game. And I think the game plan, they've already looked at it. It's probably going to be a Devin White style ball game here on Sunday.
Right. And I think there are so many layers to stopping this Packers attack, but we've seen a group that is operated, like I said, without Davante Adams, and that's changed the way that they've done things. And they found ways to adapt and find big plays down the field. They use play action. This is a team that is versatile in their approach, and they get great protection. And that's where I think the whole thing starts with the Packers on offense. Is Aaron Rodgers has always been a guy that is capable of making big plays down the field and capable of making any throw, but he will pass up quick game stuff to look for a bigger play. He will have open first reads and he'll pass it up because he thinks he can get something else. This season, he hasn't done that as much. And the big plays have still come when he's remained patient, and it's worked for them. But at what point does the Rodgers from the last couple of years, who pressed a lot and waited for those big plays, come back up? I think one of the ways is to kind of frustrate him a little bit and be able to rob some of those underneath routes and do something and drop. I don't know that it's always going to be a blitz game, I guess is one way to say. I don't know that it's always going to be a blitz game. I think when you blitz him, he understands, okay, the ball's got to come out. Right. When he gets relaxed against 4 rushers and he feels like he's good protection, he starts to take his time. That can be a catch-22, but it's also when he makes some mistakes too. So defending Rodgers is not like push this button and this is what's going to work and this is what's going to happen. But I do think one of the keys is going to be taking away, layering that short to intermediate part of the field with coverage and taking it away so that you're pushing him to go down the field. He has hit plays down the field, but they aren't necessarily super efficient at going down the field this season. And he will chuck the ball down the field even when it isn't there. And so I think it's forcing him to make those higher degree of difficulty throws and catches, and forcing the offense to operate on those rather than letting them get comfortable down in distances where it's hard to defend the sticks and defend deep in those situations. So I think that might be one of the keys to it. But getting pressure on him is still something you want to do. And I think you have to be able to do it with 4. You can't leave everybody in an island with Rodgers' escapability and expect to be successful.
You said escapability, John, and that's really a key term with him because something's got to give, right? The Buccaneers have been really good at getting to the quarterback this year. 17 sacks, that's 4th in the league right now. The Packers, guess what? They're the best at preventing sacks. They're tops in the league, only 3 sacks allowed. So something has to give. But I would say, based upon what Bruce Arians said and what we've heard from some of the defensive players, they are going to bring pressure. I asked Bruce that flat out, how do you beat Aaron Rodgers? Well, you got to pressure him. And I think one of the reasons why is he's so good at extending plays with his feet and working behind that line of scrimmage, not so much scrambling. He's not like Lamar Jackson or any of these quarterbacks that are going to pick up yards, even like Mahomes. But Mahomes can beat you with a 20-yard run, but he also does his damage like Aaron Rodgers behind the line of scrimmage, working laterally in the pocket and getting outside the pocket. And that is a big concern to me. The danger with rushing with 4 is allowing Rodgers, if you don't get home, to extend the play. That's where I have some concerns with these young cornerbacks. I like Sean Murphy-Bunting and Carlton Davis and Jamel Dean for about 3 seconds, right? But once you get past that, I remember Raheem Morris, or maybe it was Mike Tomlin, one of those 2 brilliant defensive backs coaches the Bucs have had, told me that it's like half of a rodeo. Playing defensive back is half of a rodeo, right? A rodeo, you got to hang on for 8 seconds. In pass coverage in the NFL, you got to hang on for 4. After 4 seconds, all hell breaks loose, right? And that's where Aaron Rodgers can really get you, because are you going to plaster that receiver for 5-6 seconds? And if you don't, that's where the big play happens down the field. And Aaron Rodgers likes those big plays because they're big plays, and he's a big play quarterback. So that's where I've got some concerns with his young secondaries. I like what they do in press man, and I like their physicality, and I like how they cover for the first couple seconds. But these guys aren't veteran enough to hang with and stick with and plaster. A lot of times they have that clock that goes off in their heads too, just like a quarterback does, John. And when it's 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and they're still following a guy, right? They're still
like, okay, the play's over,
Well, they're looking around. They start looking around. What's happening? Is the quarterback taking off and running with it? Do I need to turn and tackle? And by the time they do that, they're in no man's land, and that receiver has gotten some separation, and that's where the big play happens. So I'm almost begging Todd Bowles to blitz the hell out of Aaron Rodgers just to prevent him from hanging on to the ball for 4 or 5 seconds and waiting for the big play. I'd rather him take a shot one-on-one and see if he can throw over the top and win that way. I'd rather die quickly than slowly, I guess is what I'm saying if I'm going to die.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I don't want to send 6 or 7 all game. I do want to make sure the A gaps are pressured. I mean, the 49ers established, I think, an interesting blueprint for beating the Packers and beating Aaron Rodgers last year. And I know this Packers offense is better at executing at a higher rate, but I still think, their guards are a place that you can maybe win. Elton Jenkins is a good player, but Lucas Patrick's a player that had a rough game against Grady Jarrett. And I think if Ndamukong Suh can have some success against him.
Me,
and
John. You're right.
Yeah, you've got to be able to win in these A gaps, I think. And I think Devin White blitzing is going to be a big part of that, force the issue. And if you can get home with 5, I think you still got enough in coverage. So I'm not trying to send the house at Rodgers, but I am trying to disrupt those A gaps and get him, because I think the thing with Rodgers is if he sees pressure in the A gaps, he is a quarterback that likes to scramble and likes to get out. So he is going to look to get out. And if you have him contained, I think you can make him uncomfortable by hitting those A gaps hard. I think that's where Devin White's biggest impact in this game can come. He's been great as a blitzer this season, and I think they need him to continue in that capacity, and it takes him out of coverage too. So I think might be a good thing as well for all parties. That doesn't mean you're going to contain Aaron Rodgers completely, and I don't know that you can completely stop this Packers offense. We're going to talk a lot about the defense. Everybody wants to hear about how do you stop Aaron Rodgers? How do you slow down this passing attack? Packers are ranked this, and this, and the Bucs, couldn't stop Nick Foles late in the game. How is this going to work out for the Bucs? How can they possibly stop a Rodgers playing at an MVP level? And I don't know that you fully can. I want to talk about offensively what they can do. But first, I think, Scott, one of the things that you have to expect from this game is that you can almost go into the game betting that the Bucs are going to have to reach a certain amount of points in this game to be able to overcome this Packers offense. It's not like they're going to hold the Packers to 0 points. You can bet on this game, and you can bet that the Packers are going to score, in my opinion, at least 25, 26 points in this game, and the Bucs are going to have to overcome that. Might you be someone, Scott, this weekend that is laying down some bets over with our friends at MyBookie?
I will be. I'm not going to go heavy like I did last week on the underdogs and the money line.
Not trying to take a bath again.
Exactly. I'm swinging for the fences this year. I'm either like hitting grand slams or I'm striking out. Last week was a bit of a strikeout. I only hit on one of my underdog money lines, and that was Kansas State. So that was a really good win. So I'll take that. But listen, Bucs fans, between the NFL, college football, Major League Baseball playoffs, there's no shortage of games to watch right now with thousands of lines available on all your favorite sports and events. You can turn game day into payday at MyBookie. Now, if you're the type of guy who likes to bet the big favorites, consider putting a couple in a parlay for a much bigger payout. Not only do parlays make meaningless games more exciting, but more importantly, they give you a chance to turn ordinary bets into a real moneymaker. And don't forget the underdogs. That's where I like to cash in on those money lines. They got a ton of value. The thing about the NFL is that there's underdogs every Sunday, right? And you always see some upsets. Every team has a chance to win on any given Sunday, and you do too. Game spreads, championship futures, player prop bets. It's never too late to get in on the action. Start turning your sports knowledge into actual cash in your wallet. Sign up at MyBookie. And when you do, use the promo code PEWTER to claim a deposit match, dollar for dollar, all the way up to $1,000. It's a bonus that's designed to give you a little bit of extra help and a head start onto your winning season. That's promo code PEWTER for your claim to the bonus that's going to make your initial deposit double. Stacked UFC cards, presidential prop bets, all the major sports, and more. Sign up today and begin your winning season exclusively at MyBookie.
Yeah, Scott, man. I mean, I think we talked about this game and we talked so much about the Bucs defense and what they can do. And I don't think it's for naught. It's not like the Bucs can't defend in this game and are hopelessly screwed to get, give up 40 points or whatever in this game. But I do think this game is going to be won or lost on the offensive side of the football. The Bucs offense is ready for matchups like these. The Bucs defense, if they can just be in a year where nobody's playing good defense, if the Bucs defense can just be good, just be solid, just not be terrible, not get lit up every single drive, then I think they've got a chance if this offense can get out of their own way. I mean, penalties, Scott,
getting out of their own way. John,
right? We talk about it every week, but
the Buccaneers can conduct a master class. They can teach a master class on how to beat themselves. So I mean, at some point in time, the coaches, I believe they're drilling this into the players' heads. I don't believe that the coaches have not stopped talking about the mantra of stop beating yourself, guys. Stop with the penalties. Stop with the turnovers. It's got to be on the players. I mean, Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles, Byron Leftwich, they're not out there making the mistakes. It's the players, and
Right.
they've got to do something. Greg DeCruz is kind enough to chime in and say, what punishment would you dish out for players who continue to commit boneheaded penalties?
That's the thing. You can't really punish, but like, this is the NFL. Like, what are you going to do? Like, you have
can. I talked about the penalty path. That's obviously not going to happen. That was
after the season. You cut him. That what might happen to Donovan Smith. That's how you punish him. But
you're right. But what you can do is you can institute some in-house fines. I'm just saying it happens. I mean, I'm not going to say which Buccaneer teams, but there were some teams that had some fines for dropped interceptions, some fines for penalties, and I think that's a great way of doing it in-house. And I don't know if it's been done that way in a while. It used to be done under certain regimes, but that's a way to hold guys more accountable. And
right.
But they're getting paid millions. Yeah. Losing $100 for a penalty, this, that, and the other thing shouldn't mean anything to these guys, but it kind of does. It's a little bit more of a personal accountability that way.
Right. And we've talked so much about penalties, and to be honest, I agree with you. It has to be a player thing. Like, players have to take responsibility and just do a better job. And so you hope that happens. But to me, I come into every week saying, okay, don't beat yourself. That's the bottom line. That's always the case. Don't commit turnovers, don't commit penalties, don't draw passes. And this is what can happen. Like, I try to focus on the variables that I can understand. And one of those to me is that don't waste time establishing the run. I just don't think – I know they've run the ball well recently, and so it's going to be tempting. But even if you establish the run in this game, which I think is unlikely given the fact that the Packers' run defense has been great, Kenny Clark is back in this lineup. Yeah. He is one of the best run stuffers in football. He's probably he plays more versatile positions than Vea does. But if you were considering him just a nose, he and Vea would probably be in that same breath as the top true noses in the league. And so, he is one of those guys that changes the game, but even their depth, Kingsley Kiki's been great and Tyler Lancaster's been great. And they just Zadarius Smith is a beast against the run. Preston Smith is better against the run than he is as a pass rusher. And I don't think getting Kenny Clark back is big for Green Bay. There's no doubt about it, but I don't think this is a team that's amazing at rushing the passer either.
I'm with you. Here's the thing. If Rojo runs the way he ran against the Bears on Thursday, averaging 5.5, 6 yards a clip, then yeah. But here's what I don't want to see. I don't want to see Byron Leftwich come out in 13 personnel, right? In really predictable type of run formations where they've got a bunch of these tight ends stacked in there, a lot of those guys can't block. Anthony Outplayer is not back yet. O.J. Howard's out for the season. So in my opinion, if you want to run the ball, go spread and give Rojo some lanes and spread out the Packers defense. And I think the reason I say that is because Rojo's vision this year has really improved. And I'm not talking about like LASIK, like James Winston had done in the offseason. He's just become a better football player, understanding his blocks. This is year 2 in this blocking scheme, and he has a feel for how Ryan Jensen's gonna block and turn a guy, and Alex Kappa. He's run behind these guys now. He's even run behind Tristan Wirfs for 4 games. So if you want to establish the run, by God, don't do it in a predictable run formation, and don't do it on a predictable run down, which is first down. Throw the ball on first down and then run it on second and third if you have to.
Right. It's interesting.
But overall, I agree with you. They shouldn't come out with the traditional way they've tried to establish the run.
Right. This isn't a game for that. I know it's like, keep the ball away from Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. No, try and score points. Score points. And that's the key. Right. That's the key to me. I think this whole, try and limit the drives you're going to limit the drives you have too. And they're going to score some. So, if it's a shootout, it's a shootout, whatever. But I think you play aggressive on offense. You trust your defense to be able to make a play or two in this game. You recognize the score is not going to be 6-0 or anything like that at the end of the game. It's not going to be a 17. It's not going to be like the Bears game. And I think you accept that at the end of the day. You trust that your defense is going to make the play. The Packers defense won't make. Packers haven't created a lot of turnovers this year. I don't think this is a super dynamic defense. They are weak in the middle of the field. I think you can beat them in the middle of the field. Their linebackers for years have struggled in coverage, and Mike Pettin has not been one of the league's best defensive coordinators. I don't think they've played I know they played the Saints, but I don't think the Saints they're a great scheme, and the Saints had success against them too, by the way. They're a great scheme, but I don't think they're necessarily a great dynamic offense with weapons like like the Bucs have, especially with Michael Thomas out of that game. And so to me, I think that is one of the keys in this game is the Bucs saying, recognizing we have great offenses. We can beat this defense. We have to go after this team. We have to attack them. I thought they came out aggressive against the Bears, and it was successful for the most part. And I think if you look at their neutral situation pass rates that I was showing you guys this morning and that were just posted by Ben Baldwin over at The Athletic, I think that one of the best things the Bucs have done is throw a lot in neutral situations. I'm talking about first and second downs where your win probability is between 20 and 80%, like situations where it's generally up in the air, whether you throw or you run. They've passed more often than they've run the ball, and I think it's been huge for them, and it's a reason why they found the offensive success that they've had. Now, if the penalties and drops are cut out, I think this team can be a team that puts up 30 points every week and gives themselves a chance to win, and I think that they need to come out and establish that with a big passing attack, and to me, that starts with Brady. Brady's got a chance, Scott, to have a great day, I think. Even just numbers-wise for sure, but this game to me is on Brady's shoulders. Like, if all his weapons back, he hasn't really had that. He hasn't had these guys. He hasn't had Chris Godwin hardly in the lineup at all since week one. And so
we're anticipating
I just
Chris
think
Godwin's
it's huge for
come
him.
back. And and I think Mike Evans, hopefully that ankle is going to be better, and he's going to be closer to 100%. So
Scotty too, yeah, Scotty
Miller. So I'm with you. They're going to need at least 30 points to beat the Packers because this team is averaging 38 points per game. They put 43 up against Minnesota in week 1, 42 the next week against Detroit, 37 against the Saints, 30 against the Falcons. So if anything, the Packers, they're falling in terms of their point production from 43 to 42 to 37 to 30, but they've not fallen behind below 30 yet. So I think the Bucs were going to need 30 points or more to beat the Packers. I see this being a final score similar to what we saw in that Bucs-Chargers game, where it's going to have to be kind of a shootout type game. Mm-hmm. And I agree. I think Brady's going to have to have that type of caliber game, maybe not 5 touchdowns, but he's going to have to go off and be the Tom Brady we saw him win the NFC Offensive Player of the Week award. It's going to have to be that type of caliber performance, but he's going to have some help, John. He's going to have some help from Byron Leftwich, and he's going to have some help from Bruce Arians, and he's going to need some better play calls all throughout the game. And listen, Byron's been great. I got to give Byron Leftwich props and credit for the first quarter. This team has come out every single game on fire, and with Bruce is famous for scripting the first 15 plays. I would recommend to Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians script the entire game, because whatever you're doing in the first quarter with those 15 plays is working. So why not take the 15 and extend it to about 65 plays? Script the entire game and just run off your script, because it's working in the first half. Where Bruce Arians needs to come in, John, we talked about Todd Bowles needing to be more aggressive and not have that off coverage, lack of pressure type of game plan that he had early on against the Bears, especially in the second quarter where Nick Foles got comfortable. And Jason Pierre-Paul disagreed with me. He said he didn't get comfortable. Well, he did. He got comfortable, and he threw up 2 touchdowns on the board.
He didn't like that description.
He didn't, but it's a fact. He threw a touchdown pass, and then David Montgomery bounced one in down there by the goal line. But where Bruce Arians needs to match the aggressiveness from Todd Bowles is with his no risk it, no biscuit style. We saw them go for it on a 4th and 1 earlier in the game. John, I'm sticking to my guns. They should have gone for it on 4th and 1, even though it was a long one, down there at the 7-yard line. Field goals don't win games. Field goals aren't going to win games against the Packers. You know when a field goal is going to win a game against the Packers? If it's tied up and you send Ryan Suckup out there with just a couple seconds left for a game-winning field goal at the end of the game. That's where you want the field goals to come in. You don't want them otherwise. This is a game where we talked about this. You're going to have 30 points or more. I want to see more no risk it, no biscuit. That doesn't mean playing stupid, John. That doesn't mean going for it on 4th and 4 at the 11 or 12-yard line, but it means going for it on 4th and 1 at the 7-yard line. You need to stop anyways on defense, right? The game's not over. Why not make the Bears go 93 yards for a touchdown, or at least 60-some yards for a field goal, rather than what transpired? And so I'm of the opinion, I want to see this team go for broke a lot more and take some more chances.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, to me, I think that this is a team that has the chance to have success down the field in this game. I know the Packers haven't given up a ton of big plays this year, but I think honestly, you look at some of the players who were out. I think when they played Green Bay, I don't think Kenny Golladay was in for Lions when they play. I don't think Julio Jones was in for most of that game. I know he was out of that game. And so there's been some guys that maybe could have contributed that weren't in that game. And I think the Bucs just have a great vertical attack. I think there were opportunities there against the Bears were hard to come by with Scotty and Mike both playing banged up. But I think for the most part, this is a team that has shown the larger sample size of the season says they can win down the field. And they're going to have to in this game. I don't think there's any doubt about it. This is going to have to be a game where they can throw the ball down the field and have success. And so I think, yeah, absolutely, that Scotty Miller can have a big day. I mean, I think Kevin King and Jair Alexander are good corners, but both of them can bite on double moves. Both of them will bite. Aggressive guys who like to play downhill, you can get them on double moves. You can, and Scotty Miller got Jalen Johnson last week in the Bears game, and Brady didn't hit it. Brady hit through to Evans on that play. But, I think it was just it's just one of those games where I feel like the Packers offense can break, or the Bucs offense can break out. I think they can have production from a number of different weapons. And I think in the middle of the field, having Chris Godwin back is so big. Packers don't defend the middle of the field that well. Their linebackers have not been great in coverage. They use a group committee approach at linebacker and have for years, and I don't think it's been very successful for them. And so Brady being able to have a guy that finds zones and sits down and can make a few things happen after the catch. And that's the other thing about Green Bay. They are, according to Pro Football Focus, it's like the only thing that they're bad at as an offense or defense that they're really bad at, but they are the worst graded tackling team on Pro Football Focus. A lot of us saw demonstrations of that with the Alvin Kamara run on I think it was Sunday Night Football. And so I think this is a team that, absolutely. I mean, they have the ability to put up points in this game, to make things happen at all levels of the field. And I think it's an opportunity for a Bucs offense to get a win that somebody said in the comments would help their confidence tremendously moving forward.
Yeah. You know what else is going to help towards a win? Help Pewter Report get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers. We're literally about a dozen or so away right now. So if you're watching this, if you're not watching it on YouTube, go to YouTube and watch it. But if you're not, make sure you go to YouTube and type in Pewter Report TV and then hit subscribe. It's free to subscribe. It doesn't cost a thing. And that way you'll get some notifications about when we're doing these. And John, we're going to have more of a regular schedule next week, just to tease that a little bit. But
that's true.
But you want to make sure to stay tuned to our YouTube channel to watch us on the Pewter Report podcast. You can also listen to us on SoundCloud and iTunes and all of those mediums, or you can just hit the YouTube channel and listen rather than watch us. But I wanted to make sure to get that plug in. Any other plugs I should be getting in, John?
Well, there's our friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance, Scott, who we want to make sure we let all our listeners and viewers know about our friends over at Briar Greaves and how they can get insured this year. Yeah.
Now, John, it's a sunny day where you are. I can see that. It's also sunny here today, but as you probably know, Floridians, that can change in a hurry. Storm season's still here, even though we're in the middle of October. It doesn't end until the end of this month. So don't wait to review your insurance policies. Call Briar Greaves Insurance, which is family owned and has served the greater Tampa Bay area for 30 years for all of your home, auto, boat, life, commercial, and flood insurance needs. A lot of homeowner companies are canceling and not renewing their policies. They're leaving Florida, or they're increasing their premium significantly. I told you guys about that the other day. I've been so swamped, I've not had time to call Briar Greaves yet, but I promise you by next week I will. I'm going to call Briar Greaves and speak either to Sam or Briar directly for that personal touch. And they've got the best rates from what I understand. So I'm going to call and find out if that's the case. The folks at Briar Greaves Insurance, listen, they're big Buccaneer fans. So don't be surprised if they're asking you these questions about your insurance policies that they want to talk a little Bucs football. I don't think you guys would mind that, right? They're also, as you know, proud sponsors of the Pewter Report podcast here on pewterreport.com. So visit BriarGreavesInsurance.com. It's right down there, BriarGreavesInsurance.com, or call 813-876-4166 today. That's 813-876-4166, Briar Greaves Insurance.
Well, Scott, it's come to that point in the podcast where we need to go ahead and make our predictions for this game and say who we think is going to win. And you can find all our predictions from the whole Pewter Report staff You can find those over at pewterreport.com. We'll have those up, Friday morning probably, right, Scott?
Friday afternoon. We'll
afternoon. Give everybody a chance to get theirs in, but we'll have our Pewter Report roundtable predictions and thoughts on this game and how it's going to proceed, which will be fun. And we'll have a podcast also coming later this week too, where we'll continue to talk. We'll have a guest on and talk more Bucs-Packers and coming later this week. And so that'll be kind of a fun thing that we're looking forward to doing as well, and looking to hopefully have more guests on throughout the season as well, so that y'all can tune in and listen to some other people's opinions on this team and where they're headed outside of Scott and I. And so fun stuff to look forward to, but we got to give our predictions now. We don't have the luxury of waiting, Scott, until Friday like Mark and Taylor and Matt do. We've got to give ours now. And so I'll let you go first and tell us what you think is going to happen in this Packers-Bucs game.
All right. Yeah. So you can get more in-depth preview information in my SR's Fab 5, where I talk about the 4 matchups to watch. The one I'm really keying in on, the one I think that John touched on it, that they got to win is that guard position. They've got to, Ndamukong Suh and Will Golston, they've really got to come to play and help out Nacho in the middle. So you can find out more about what I think about the Bucs-Packers game in the Fab 5 and also in the predictions, the Pewter preview and predictions, I should say, which will come out Friday afternoon. So we've talked a lot about what needs to happen. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. I think the Buccaneers, they got a chance to win, but it's going to be close. But I think the Packers do win this. I think the Bucs are still trying to find themselves, and I'm not convinced yet that this team can play a near perfect game. And against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, who are perfect, and Aaron Rodgers so far with 13 touchdowns, no interceptions, only been sacked 3 times, is playing about as near perfect as you can get. So I don't think the Bucs are quite there yet. I think that they make some strides in a lot of areas this game. They keep it close. This could be a rematch we see, John, when it comes to playoff time between these two teams. But I think right now the Packers are just the better, more disciplined, more polished team, and they're going to prevail 31-27 here at Ray J. But as I said, Bucs will fall to 3-3. Don't panic. There's still plenty of time for this team to rally and even get to 10 wins, maybe even win the division, John, and still make the playoffs. But this is going to be another tough one, I think, for the Bucs.
I've gone back and forth on this game, Scott. And, before the year, I said they would lose to the Packers. And I thought they'd be 4-1 at this point. And they should be 4-1, but I thought they'd be 4-1 at this point. And I think the Bucs are going to win. I don't know. It's crazy. I mean, it's crazy, I know, but I think the Bucs are going to win. And I think the Packers might legitimately be the best team in football, but I think this week the Bucs win. I think by the end of the season, Bucs are in that conversation with Green Bay if they can cut out beating themselves. I know it's a big if. I know everybody in Tampa Bay said we've been talking about that for years. True, we also have not had as talented a team as this team in the time that you've been saying that. This is a different caliber talent team, and I think that wins out eventually. I think the leadership there wins out eventually as they develop better habits moving forward. Having said that, this game, I think Green Bay is the worst defense, and I think the Bucs offense comes to life in the way that we've wanted them to all season, and they put it together against, in their toughest matchup of the season. I think that focus is there, that intensity is there, and I think they come out in that game, and I think that they get this done. I think that this is a team, they can hit big plays down the field on this team, I think they can run the ball enough to be able to stay in good down and distances, and I think Brady's built for these kinds of matchups. He's built to not be close in these kind of games, but to win them. And if the rest of his guys give him a chance, if the offensive line gives him a chance, which for drives in the second half they didn't against Chicago, if his receivers, who are now healthy, which hasn't been the case most of the season, catch the ball, which also hasn't been the case most of the season, if those things happen, I think he's the guy that can win you this game. It's about the rest of the pieces coming together, to me, in my opinion. And so that is what I'm looking for this Bucs offense to do. And then defensively, I think this is a team that, is going to probably give up points and they're going to give up plays, but I think they're going to battle back. I think they're going to hold the Packers to a couple field goals. And I think that's going to be a difference in the game. The yards might not be great at the end of the game, but I think the difference is going to be how the play in the red zone unfolds. And other than last week where the Bucs had to settle a little bit, again, I think it was drops and penalties and the sack by Donovan Smith before Brady could even turn around. It was those kind of mistakes in that area. I don't think that's going to happen every single week for the Bucs. I think sustainably this team has a good winning formula in the red zone with one of the best red zone quarterbacks of all time. I think that's going to matter. And if the Packers have struggled in one area, they're like last in the league at 1 yard out from the end zone. I was the only negative stat I saw on them. They're bad in that area of the field. And so in the easiest area of the field. So I think the Bucs win that area.
Green Bay they don't have Nick Foles at quarterback. I mean, Nick Foles is the Tom Brady kryptonite. It's only just Aaron Rodgers, right? So
those storylines crack me up. Nick Foles beats Tom. Nick Foles didn't play against Tom Brady. I love that storyline.
So what's your score, John? High scoring, low scoring? What you got?
Oh, high scoring. Yes, I think it's going to be 34-31. The Bucs win on a field goal. They finally put together the 2-minute offense that has been terrible this season. I think they put together the 2-minute offense and they drive down the field and they win this game on a Ryan Succop field goal. I think that's how it ends, Scott.
Wow,
I'm pumped about it.
Winning on a field goal. Buccaneer fans don't know what that means.
Against maybe the best team in the NFL. It's gonna be a day. Sunday's gonna be a day for Tampa Bay, in my opinion. Anyway, we'll see how it all unfolds. But it's been fun stuff. Like I said, we'll have another podcast dropping later this week. We'll let you guys know about that one. Times and details. It's gonna be with a guest, so we're trying to work with them. Yep. But it's gonna be a fun one. And so looking forward to having that. We'll let you guys all know when and where that one's gonna be, and
make sure that you go to youtube.com and go to Pewter Report TV and subscribe. Get us over 1,000 and get us on to 2,000. Let's keep this thing going. We're having a fun time doing it. And I'll be back on Sunday along with Mark and yourself, John, and we'll wrap up the Bucs-Packers game. So looking forward to it. This is a big game. It's not a primetime game, but it's a 4:25 game.
It's nationally though. It's the national game of the week. So I mean, so I'll be able to see it here in Pennsylvania too. So I'm excited on that. I'm pumped about that. But yeah, so thank you all for subscribing. It's been awesome. We've been hundreds of subscriptions in the last week, 10 days or so. And we're hoping to continue to add to that. And just a little sneak peek for what's coming Monday with our new podcast plan and layout and things like that. Gonna be seeing a little bit more of us around these parts. So get used to that. And we'll keep planning as best we can to give you some great content. So for Scott Reynolds and myself, John Ledyard, thanks so much for listening to this edition of the Pewter Report podcast.
Out.